Hey everybody, it's Casey with Pinecase. Tonight I am joined with Christy Walker. She is a fantastic, pioneering, fierce woman from Vancouver Island. She has come to discuss a few things with us this evening. Pardon me. I'm super excited and I'm really glad that we're going to talk through some tools and tricks that we can have in our back pockets for maybe stressful moments or anxious days or whatever. I know that I'm a little bit out of my element today. Today I'm sitting in the back of an 18-wheeler. I've gone live on location a few different times, mostly with horses, so this is a little bit different, but I'm super honored, and it feels like such a privilege to have somebody on the Pinecase podcast who can maybe help me walk through some of the feelings that I'm feeling being in a different space, or the energies that I have being in a different atmosphere. So thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, anytime. I feel like having Calico head of programming, we get these really awesome experiences over on the BC coast. So it's really refreshing, and I appreciate the time that you took to come and join us, even with the time change and all of that good stuff. I was like looking at all of your scheduling on all your websites and stuff. I'm like, did you have time for us? Are you sure? Should we do need to push this around? Would you mind just letting us in on a little bit of like what your day-to-day looks like running, being an entrepreneur, and also maybe there's so many words for it, but I always kind of refer to it as like maybe a caretaker of emotions for people.
Yeah. Well, my day-to-day is different every day, all the time, because I wear many hats within my realm of wellness. So a day like today was like at home, getting all the ducks in a row behind the scenes, dealing with all the emails, messages, responding to clients, booking people in, taking care of like Airbnb bookings. We have a little wellness stay here at the spa, as well as planning. I grow a huge community garden, which is like a back to the land kind of healing up in one of our remote Indigenous communities on Vancouver Island. So we're doing a project there right now. So, project building, planning, connecting dots, and communicating with lots of people on many different levels. So there's lots of moving parts.
That's really exciting. Community gardens is one of those things that always stands out to me whenever I'm like traveling around or anything like that. And I find it so interesting that it only takes one or two people to kind of come to get together and then have this beautiful platform for all, everyone to come and enjoy. What inspired you to participate in something like that?
Well, I've been gardening all my life, born and raised on Vancouver Island. My parents always had a garden. My grandfather had a big, huge, beautiful garden. And I remember as a kid just eating all the food from the land. My grandfather would process and had a pantry just full of jars, and so it's just something that's always been a part of me. And then about 25 years ago, I was going to school in Calgary and became a certified herbalist, a nutritionist, was studying just wellness on all levels, just jumped right in with both feet and worked out on an organic farm during that time. There was actually Wild Rose College is in Calgary, and Wild Rose has Wild Rose Clinic and also has kind of on organic herb farms. So I got to work on Wild Rose's herb farm, growing medicine, growing food while I was from the land, learning in school and getting credits to go to school. So that was amazing opportunity that only a handful of us had, and it was pretty amazing to be able to come in knowing that I had grown food already in my plants, but then to be actually submerged and out of the classroom learning on the land, with our instructors and having more one-on-one time and stuff. And so working with the plants was just always a really powerful thing for me. And then fast forward through a bunch of more education, and at one time I was running a spa in Campbell River, South Island, south of town here, Ocean Resort. And while there, they were doing a lot, speaking of yesterday, Truth and Reconciliation. The venue was being used by the healing of the Indigenous residential school groups, and this was about 15 years ago. And they're like, wow, would you like actually work together with us for our groups? We have big groups of like 40 people coming in for like 2 weeks at a time, and they're going to be doing really deep healing work during the days. So do you want to work with them in the evenings for self-care to help process what they've done? And that began that part of my journey. And I've long since been gone from Ocean Resort. My friend Lucas, who had created it, he retired and sold, and everything kind of shifted. So both the nations left and found other venues, and I left and found other venues, but they always brought me with them wherever they went.
Wow.
So then I traveled around with them and brought wellness to wherever they were gathering. Which led me to then being invited into community and offering services within the communities, traveling on that level up and down the island from Quatsino, North Island, all the way down to Souk and over to Alert Bay. And it's been quite a phenomenal journey, actually, of sharing and really inspiring wellness on many levels. So then COVID happened, and the day that COVID was announced, it was the last day of the contract that I had in a community and remote. And it's like, wow, what's going to happen now with this like new virus that's just been announced? And I'm like, if food gets shut off to Vancouver Island, you guys aren't going to have food.
Right.
And so that was a huge like thing. Like as soon as Campbell River got the last of the trucks, the grocery store's shelves would be empty before they could even get to town from an hour drive away. I'm like, you guys need a garden. You need sustainability. We need to like really bring this together. And they're like, well, we don't have somebody who knows how to do it. I'm like, I know how to do it. Let's do this. And I went home that night and I told my partner at the time, I'm like, I need some wood for like garden boxes. We need to make this happen. And he was in the logging industry and drove a self-loading logging truck. The next day he comes home, he sends me a picture. He's like, meet me at my house at 6:30 in the morning. And he had a flat deck truck filled with wood that he had milled. He's like, I had this cedar that was there. I took it to the mill. I had it milled for you. We're delivering it tomorrow. And that was the beginning of the garden. It was just like so amazing. And
Oh my gosh.
our 6th year of the garden.
Congratulations.
Such a beautiful healing journey for so many, having that space. And you know, the first year we put up a fence and we built the boxes. The second year we built a huge greenhouse, and then the third year we built a pantry. So we have this awesome little pantry that's full of all processed food that I either glean from the Comox Valley or get from Campbell River, or that we grow ourselves. And the community, it's free for all the community members. So it's like a land-based healing where people can come and work in the garden and heal on that level, or they can come and gather food to nourish their bodies. And it's been a phenomenal project.
It's amazing when you can get a situation where, you know, the healing, well, food is such, I mean, soul food has been a thing always, but when you can really see it from, you know, the roots all the way through to the value in its nutrients, you know, when you talk about like vitamins and minerals and things like that, it's really amazing. I love that you guys were kind of ahead of the curve too, right? Because COVID was, you know, it was serious and it took out a lot. It was a heavy pressure, I mean, for lack of a better term. But right now we're kind of in a situation, it sounds like in current news, that having these like sustainable situations in our backyards or for the community is kind of what we need to be doing when things arise, like strikes that we're looking at right now, right? And so to have all the tools that we need to be ahead of those things is so important. So yeah, it's impressive that you were in the right position straight from your education to pioneer some of these
Totally.
projects. Yeah, that's really neat. And how fun is it? Like when you get to, like, it must be quite a mix up of people that go to these places, right? Because some are there to garden, some are there, I mean, well, I guess to be on both ends of the give and the take with that. I feel like there should be one of those in every block, in every downtown area, in every hub, in every, yeah, that's really, really neat.
And we get little kids coming out and helping, like shoveling dirt and like connecting at a young age, because we want to really inspire them to want to be a part of that for their future generations, right? And we get elders that just come and have tea and sit and just talk. And so it's a healing garden on that mental, emotional level too, because if you're lonely, you have somewhere to go. And there's like, that whole just space of holding a healthy space for community to gather.
Yeah. What do you think it is that prevents communities from doing things like that? Like, not to be negative, but I often wonder what is it that's holding communities from taking initiatives. Like, why do you think that it has to be kind of these independent projects? Because we see some of the bigger projects, but they don't seem to be as personal as these ones that are kind of like grassroots and a little bit more intimate. Like, what do you think it'll take for like them to kind of realize that maybe growing gardens and having these sustainable things in fresh water, that's the place to start healing, opposed to like the top down that we're kind of experiencing right now?
Well, what I've noticed and getting more and more people coming out is nobody wants to come and do the work.
Right.
But when they're like, wow, this pasta sauce is like the best pasta sauce I've ever had, right?
Yeah.
And it's in between paydays and they might need a little bit extra help. So it's like, not that we're the food bank, but we're the community pantry. Come on down and grab what you need, right? Get some homemade pickles, get some jams, some jellies, some pasta sauce, whatever you need to take home to sustain you until your next payday. And then they're like so much, like, you should, right? So then they get more inspired. So then they're more interested and they want to be a little bit more a part of it. So it's like, really, the more they try a little bit, the more people want to know. And there's a lot of learning. So I think that that's one of the hard parts, is like, growing food isn't easy.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of time. And so it's not for everybody to do that. And that's okay, because then we can support our local farmers too, right? Like, whether you have a community garden, you grow food in your backyard. Like, I tell people all the time, like, oh, I want to move to the country and be self-sufficient. It's like, like, Instagram makes it look really easy and really fun, but it's not all fun and games. Like, sometimes it's better to go to your local farmers market and support the farmer that's doing it full time and like growing food well, because you can have a lot of failures as well as a lot of like joys, right?
Right. Yeah. Do you have any like tips for people who want to kind of start their own situation? Because I mean, you are definitely right. Um, I've gone from working cows all the way through to like tree nurseries, and it is not for everybody. And it is definitely one of those situations where everybody needs to pick a profession, because we are not necessarily even the jack of two trades, for sure. So you're definitely right there. But if we were to start like a small project, or if I was listening in, what are some of the things that I could do on a small scale to help my community?
In your own backyard, or like at a community level?
Well, maybe even in my own backyard, right? Like,
I think starting small is key, like manageable. Doing things like so that it's easily manageable, and then sharing, like having a little market stand or a little something at the front of the yard with like free bouquets of kale, or right, like it can be as simple as just having some fresh healthy greens to share. Fruit trees, that's always great. There's a lot of fruit tree projects out there. I mean, right now in the Comox Valley, Campbell River area, we have both the fruit tree project in the Comox Valley, and then we have Lush Valley, and then we have the Strathcona Fruit Tree Project. Actually, that's what it is. Lush Valley and Comox Valley. And they're going around and picking people's apple trees, because people plant these apple trees with all good intentions and then they don't harvest them. So this group goes and they pick them all, and then they give them to people in need that need the food. And so it's like free food. There's such an abundance of food that can be grown here, and not everybody, you might have the land, but you might not have the ability to grow the food, or you're working to pay for the land and have other people and grow food on it. So there's so many options, right? But it's just getting back to the land, getting back to the earth, and that is such a healing thing. Also, is when we do spend that time connecting.
Oh, isn't it so refreshing to like kick off your shoes and your socks? I was actually just cleaning up all the apples at my grandparents' property. And we were kind of negotiating what we were going to do with all these beautiful apples. And we're like, okay, well, the kind of the typical ones, apple sauces and apple pies and all that stuff. And I was like, well, what about apple cider? And my grandpa was like, what about apple cider vinegar? And so we were kind of tossing ideas around, and it was amazing how quickly the kids got involved with the conversation and wanted to participate in that. They were like, oh, well, I want to try applesauce with pears, or we want to try this. I'm like, great. Maybe it would, I don't know if it would necessarily be a conversation that we would have had otherwise, unless we were out there kind of sloshing around and picking up all these beautiful apples. And with that comes a little bit of sweat and a little bit of sweat equity, right? And before you know it, we were all outside laughing and carrying on. It's just, yeah, grounding. And it's such a beautiful thing. I missed the island for the 100-mile diet, but Alberta is also a really great province when it comes to agriculture and representing, both the food industry and the blue collar industry. And I'm just so proud to be Canadian lately, when you see things like that, because we were in a time not that long ago where everything was just overwhelmingly prepackaged, and everyone seemed a little bit more artificial, and there was just kind of this like convenience over everything. And I don't know if it was necessarily COVID that kind of restarted that clock, because I really don't want to give that credit for anything. But it seemed like once we were able to break out of that shell and start, kind of being like, what is important to us, the kind of, shooting star that shot around everybody. And we were like, we want live music again. We want real food again. And we want, it just came out with a bang, and it's been really interesting to watch happen. So yeah, shout out to everybody that's out there making a difference, because it was definitely needed.
Yeah, and it's all using creativity, right? Like artistic creativity, like just being able to tap into and tune into what feels good and is healing too, right? Making music's healing, growing a garden's healing, like making your healing.
Yeah, absolutely. When we were talking a little bit beforehand, you were talking about like maybe some tools that we can have to walk ourselves through some stressful situations. Like gardening is a great idea. Journaling is always wonderful, and obviously self-care goes bigger than that, right? There's things that maybe people wouldn't necessarily, or even self-care alternatives. But what are some of the things that the everyday person can kind of lean on that you would suggest?
Well, my number one, like when you're feeling dysregulation within yourself, like a heightened sense of just like frustration, when you're starting to feel your window of tolerance is lessening, coming back to that breath, right? That always will bring you back into your center. So one way that I like to think about that is when we're first born, what's the very first thing we do? We take a nice big inhalation. And every moment of every day, we're breathing in or out all the way until our last day when we exhale. So coming back to that breath is the biggest way to center ourselves within any moment. You take a baby, for example, who's, like unhappy, and you just hold the baby and you rock it. And I remember when my daughter was little, and I would just be like, I would breathe nice, deep inhalations and exhalations with her, and she would catch on to my rhythm, and she would breathe with me, and it would just like, and I do that a lot with clients on my massage table. It's like I take the nice deep breaths, and it just sinks them, drops them right into that deep state of relaxation, because the breath just brings us right into that calmness, right? And we can do that anywhere. We can be on a bus, and we can just start to bring our breath back to that nice deep rhythm, and it's just that instant. So I think breathing, breath work to come back into that regulation is free. We can do it anywhere. Nobody needs to know that we're doing it. And it's such a great way to recenter ourselves. visualization, like just, you know, if you're in a moment and things are feeling super stressful and you're anxious, like what's a beautiful visualization that you can think of? Maybe you're in a field of flowers, maybe you're at the beach, whatever that happy place is for you. Maybe you're in your bath at home reading a book, like any in your cozy blankie on the couch watching a show, whatever it is where it takes you to that place that will really help to calm your whole nervous system. Allow yourself to go there in your mind, right? The mind is a powerful tool, and we have the ability to like to be wherever we want to be just with the power of thought, right? That's a beautiful one.
Yeah, that is a beautiful one. I forget to give myself permission to do those things sometimes. You know, it's
right, and we can do it with ease and nobody knows. And that's the thing, is like to be able to be like, if you're just heightened with too many people around, you can do both of those things and come back into your center without like allowing yourself to go on to that next level of, you know, having a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you mind giving me just a brief description of what it means to be mindful?
Mindfulness to me is just being in the present moment, allowing yourself to be fully aware of what's going on and like how you're affecting the situation, how you're affecting your own environment, and how the environment's affecting you even too, right? Like just having that mindfulness as to the present moment and wherever it is and whatever way that it is for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We have so many people in the pine needle community that don't have the resources to maybe, you know, and I don't mean by like financial resources. I mean like some people really just find that some of these organizations are maybe overwhelming for them, or they feel like it's not for them, or you know, even I have, you know, some people in the community that see branding as like a thing that overwhelms them. They're like, no, I just want somebody that's like super relatable, that's like sitting on the tailgate of their truck to tell me this information. I always find it interesting. So I'd love to be able to take advantage a little bit and to explain some of these things, because, you know, there's a lot of the times where I'm like, oh, just be mindful, like, oh, do this and do that. And they're like, what in the heck are you talking about? And I'm like, right, I forget that I've had all these beautiful opportunities to hear these words kind of, you know, rehearsed and by definition. And I forget sometimes that there's people in my life that actually don't understand what that even means, or that self-care doesn't mean to take the time to go have a shower. I'm like, no, it actually, you know what? You're allowed to have, you know, self-care days in your pajamas too. It's not necessarily like a hygiene thing as it is like the time and the space that you're allowing for yourself to have. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Nourishing, like having a nourishing meal, that's self-care, right? Like taking those little breaks, making sure that you're taking care of yourself, nourishing yourself on all levels, mind, body,
Yeah.
right? Like having a bath. Like a bath is a beautiful way to like calm yourself on all levels, and adding things like essential oils, right? So now we can start adding in extra things like having a shower, perfect. It's cleansing, it's going to wash everything away. Having a bath, soaking in that water, maybe add some Epsom salts, right? Epsom salts helps like rid the body of negative energy, as well as like putting essential oils, lavender, really calming, beautiful, soft, like, and just helps to bring that calmness, easing anxiety. Chamomile, eucalyptus helps with just breathing and really good for opening the lungs, but helping to get those nice inhalations in. You don't want to put all essential oils in the bath, so that's a whole other story. But like those are some beautiful ones to use in the bath. Geranium essential oil, beautifully balancing, hormonally balancing, really balancing. It's amazing for women who struggle with like symptoms of moon time, right?
Oh, interesting. I haven't heard of that one. I've been stuck in my like tea tree oil, like clean with thieves land, and so I don't step out of that bubble very often. But yeah, geranium, that sounds lovely,
It's
actually.
hormonally balancing, and often hormones, because in today's world with a lot of the food out there, there's like hormones added. So then people are like, people taking birth control to prevent unwanted pregnancies, etc. Right? Like our hormones are out of balance, which affects our mind, affects our emotional self. And so geranium, clary sage, both of those are beautifully balancing for the hormones, and they can be nice in the bathtub. You can use them in a roller ball, inhalation. Like there's lots of essential oils are really, really beautiful for the mind.
That sounds so nice. I'm such a teetotaler, actually. I switched to chamomile just recently because I've been heavily caffeinating myself at nighttime, and I'm like, I need to break out of this routine that I have. Like I when the house goes quiet in the evening, that's when I make a tea and I have my ritual, and then I enjoy like a book or walking around and kind of puttering and whatever. And I was like, I need to find something that's not caffeinated, so I'm not doing this off into like, wee hours when it's not necessary to be up. So chamomile is one that I absolutely enjoy because you don't have to add anything to it, and it's just so sweet and lovely. Oh yeah, like, oh, I need to get my teapot going.
That I like lately, and it's like the calm night tea, and it has chamomile in it and passion flower, and it's a beautiful nighttime blend as well. And there's something about a cup of tea, right? And creating that ritual for yourself to end your day before you go to bed, and just creating that nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So what inspired you at the very beginning of all of this? I mean, you talked a little bit about your education and how your personal experience kind of rolled into that and vice versa. But at the very, very beginning, like what inspired you to kind of, it seems like this path actually kind of chose you. I was going to say you choose this path, but it seems like maybe it's a little bit of the opposite.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Well, just growing up, West Coast kid in the garden in the forest all my life. Going through like high school, I used to get headaches all the time. So I suffered from chronic headaches and migraines. And looking back, I was probably dehydrated, didn't drink enough water, and then probably on a nutritional level, like my mom always like provided us with like beautiful, healthy, whole meals to the best of her ability. But then, when you're a teenager, you don't always eat the best. And I moved to Calgary actually, and I was living in Calgary. I was 19 and I was on my way coming home for a visit, but I had a headache and I had my luggage checked in and my ibuprofen was in the luggage. And I probably took ibuprofen like every day for headaches at that stage in my life. And it was just like, right, I had a headache like every day because I was dehydrated. There was a kiosk, a little aromatherapy kiosk. And I went up to her and I'm like, oh, what's this? And they had a little blend for headaches and I smelled it. And she's like, rub some on your temples and like behind your ear. And so I did that and it worked. And I was like, isn't lavender a plant? Like peppermint? Like we can grow this. And she's like, yeah. Like just, and I'm like, huh, interesting. I didn't know that plants healed. And so I was 19 and I realized for the first time, putting two and two together, all these plants I've been surrounded with all my life is actually like healing. Like, huh. I'm like, I want to learn more about this. So then I went home and I'm like, Mom, look at this. Like, this is aromatherapy and this is what it does. And this healed my headache. And I haven't had to take like ibuprofen because of it. And so we looked into it, and there was actually a program starting in Calgary that was in 2 months' time, an aromatherapy certification, like 1-year program. So I signed up for it, and that was just the beginning of everything. Because that led to like doing my Reiki master, to doing like herbology and nutrition and reflexology and massage, and it just like was a beautiful butterfly.
Wow, that's amazing. I love hearing stories like that because that's such an organic way to fall into that. You know what I mean? Like to have something, we all kind of get stuck in it, and if it's right in front of our faces, we never see it. But to be taking like ibuprofen or Tylenol every single day, like it probably felt like it was never going to end. Because I
don't even think I thought about it. Right? It was just like,
right?
I have a headache, take some pills, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then now looking back, diet could have been better, water, like more hydration, And so that's really key. Drink your water, people.
Yes. Yeah.
Take a sip of water right now, wherever you are.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Actually, one of my reels I just posted was about hydration. I was like, oh, the world would be such a less chaotic place if everyone just focused on hydrating themselves, honestly. I'm sure it's the root of most evil. Like,
Yeah.
oh, interesting. Oh, that's so amazing. I love that. I love that it was like a problem solver for you because I mean, that situation, especially nowadays, could have gone in the other direction, right? Like, and I don't want to go too much into that because there's another time. But I love that there was like a problem and then a solution, and now you're able to help so many people with this beautiful solution. We're in a time, unfortunately, especially on the West Coast, where people need to hear that there is other ways to get around things. And I've been met lately with some hard conversations, and people are like, "Well, that stuff doesn't work for me. Like, I'm detoxing off of this, or I'm going through this, or these are the traumas that I'm having, or you wouldn't understand because I'm grieving." And I'm like, "Okay, right. Though all those things are fair. Those are your feelings. You're allowed to have them. However, if you put these plans in motion and you build yourself the foundation that you need, especially with hydration and nutrients and community, then it puts yourself in a better situation to deal with all of those really hard topics that you just talked about, right? But it's challenging sometimes because when people are in that kind of like heightened state, they need to get out of that heightened state first to even be able to rationalize that these things are these I mean, lavender absolutely grows wild, and peppermint absolutely grows wild, and all these things are accessible. But we do have all these amazing artisans um, and therapies and therapists that are already out there doing the hard work, and that it's already available for us. And these beautiful packages and these beautiful spas and all of these places that are there, and it's not necessarily there just because people need to go get lip filler or they want to go for um, you know. Um, all the other spa things. Spa really does mean like self-care in such a great way these days. Like when I was young and I would go into
Water, like
these,
that's what spa is, right? Healing water.
yeah,
So, and
right.
you can create your own spa at home in your bathtub and
Yeah,
have your bath with your lavender essential oil, and that will help when you're feeling heightened, when you're going through those moments of grief and loss, when you're feeling like, addictions are taking over, like just taking those moments of self-care. And I remember having this conversation with one of my community members once, and like why do you feel you need to drink all the time, right? And it's like, well, because I don't really feel and I'm drinking to numb the pain. And I'm like, well, what if we could think about some positive things to do instead of numbing the pain, just to to feel and to heal. And so she was quite young, and we started chatting about that, and she's like, well, what would that look like? And it was exactly that, going for a nice walk in nature, right? Like breathe in the trees and the fresh air, and feeling the wind on your face, and like going home and having a nice hot bath and putting in some Epsom salts and some lavender, and just like really relaxing and calming, and like trying to shift one addiction with another and allowing self-care to become your new addiction, right? And
yes,
she loves
exactly.
that. So she has shifted, and I'm so proud of this young woman, like where she's at right now, from just where she was at a few years ago. And actually, that was a conversation we had while we were in the garden. And so sitting
Right.
in the garden, we were planting carrots together, and she just started asking questions, and I started sharing, like just having those conversations and having people that'll listen to you, and exactly sitting on the tailgate of the truck or in the garden, but not in a sterile little office like that's all like fuddy-duddy like counselors and stuff, right? Because nobody
Right.
feels comfortable in that situation. Like it feels like all eyes on me, like, why am I in here? Am I in here because I'm bad? Or you know what I mean? Like, so
Mm-hmm.
when we take that counseling session for a walk to the forest or to a garden or anywhere outside of those four walls where everybody can feel a little bit safer to have conversation, right?
Yeah. It's so wonderful. It's so wonderful. I can't scream it enough. Um, to see all these projects happening, like people take for granted the ocean, they take for granted the trees, they take for granted, these trails that are groomed. Campbell River and the Comox Valley is just a plethora of places to have these beautiful moments with yourself or with a friend or with a loved one or a family member, whatever. It really is the hub in my mind for where therapy should start, because the backdrop is just amazing. But the reality is you don't even need it to be beautiful, right? Like walking your property line without your shoes on long enough will start to feel like therapy, or
in your bare feet, right?
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
having that daily connection, like we used
Mhm.
to have a bunny, and one of my favorite things about having this bunny is I had to feed it every day. And so just like going out to feed the bunny at the bunny hutch, but my bare feet 365 days a year, just connecting to the earth and having that, like, that was magic, right? And so if you have chickens, if you have like a little garden, if you have to take the compost out, no matter what it is, like have something where you do go out with your bare feet and just have that moment of connection. It doesn't even have to be for long.
No. That's so funny. I'm like, were you watching my podcast the other day? I was feeling so cooped up and stuffy and I couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, I have all the tools that I need to be doing all these things. I don't know why I'm feeling so claustrophobic. And I went to bed that night and I woke up the next day and I'm like, I'm changing my entire day. Like I usually started with 1 cup of coffee, then I switched to tea. I'm not drinking coffee or tea today. Okay. I'm not going to wear, normally I wear, jeans and a sweater. I'm not wearing those today. I'm wearing, blazer and whatever. Like if I wear my, my Converse shoes, then I'm not wearing those today. I literally changed everything. And by the time my day was like about half over, I was sitting on a bucket in a field with a bunch of horses and, and a couple of the girls that I train their horses with them or whatever. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching them work with their horses and I'm like, oh, that's what it was. Just needed to change those little bit of things that were becoming negative things. And not to say coffee or tea are negative things, but they are when you need them to start your day, right? I was just like, oh, I just needed to switch up a few different things. And before you know it, I was like wind on my cheeks, feeling exhausted from the day. I mean, there's not a better sleep you can have than a fresh air, fresh air day. And just like, oh, that's all it took. I didn't need to spend $300 on a therapy session, although I probably could use it. But it was just like a dirty bucket in a field with a couple of horses.
Well, and
Some like,
horses are known to be healing animals, right? So
yes, yeah, are definitely spoiled in that aspect. It was the thing that I gravitated towards in my own healing journey. Just to be honest, from just like completely one of those situations that just kind of solved itself. I needed a job. Somebody needed, a laborer. And then before you know it, I've now like kind of toured around and been really just honored to be able to work with like Colts for our CMP and all of these great projects that have kind of just, unveiled themselves to me along the way. But yeah, they are definitely healing. I wish that for everybody, that feeling for sure.
mm-hmm.
Just saying to my sister the other day, I'm like, the love of horses is the best gift that you ever gave me,
Which that brings me to, have you ever heard of something called flower essences and rescue remedy?
No, I haven't heard of either of those things.
So it's a plant medicine.
Okay.
So there's Bach flower essences, and Dr. Edward Bach, he created rescue remedy. And so this
Okay.
is beautiful. So it's taking the flowers and placing them into some pure spring water and allowing the sun to infuse the water with the energy of the flower, and then taking that that essence and blending it with some brandy to cure it. And then that is like a really gentle vibrational medicine. Rescue remedy is amazing for stress, for anxiety, for all those times when you're feeling that you need a little assistance, but it is so gentle. And so when you were talking earlier about like some of the Pinecase, like clients needing like, oh, well, that doesn't work for me and that doesn't work for me, this might be something really beautiful that might work for them. And the neat
Mhm.
about it is it just works on a very vibrational level, and it doesn't counteract contradict any other medications or any other substances that they may be taking. Like, it's totally safe. And one of the best experiences I had with it was with a horse. So my
Oh, wow.
daughter used to ride when she was young, and she was into jumping and all that. And, you know, you get anxiety before a show. And so I'd give her some Rescue Remedy and me, but we'd always put some on the horse's snout too. And like, if a horse was getting a little bit like antsy, like just giving it the Rescue Remedy, and it would be like that. And for it to work on a big, beautiful horse, it works on us, right? I've used it on dogs before too. A dog got hit by a car, unfortunately, and the dog was just freaking out. We needed to get it into the car. I put some Rescue Remedy on its nose, instantly just calmed down, allowed us to pick it up, get it into the car. So when we know that these things work so well on animals that don't have the mind to be like, that's not going to work on me, right? Because that's what humans do so often. Well, that's not going to work on me. How can that work, right? How can the energy, the vibrational energy of flowers work for me? But it's like, it works for horses.
Yeah.
It works on dogs. Like, it works on us. It works on us so amazingly well. So anybody that really struggles with anxiety, Bach Rescue Remedy, you can get it at local health food stores. You can order it online, and you can get it in a little dropper bottle, or you can get it as a spray. And for little kids, you can get it as candies. Like, so that's a nice thing, because like, it's easy to pop a candy in your mouth and nobody knows what you're doing, right? But it's just like, it brings you back like into that space, and very subtly and very gently.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. So I've said wow so many times in this conversation, but yeah, wow, that's really neat. So explain this to me one more time. So if I was completely green and completely ignorant to this whole situation, I go and choose the flowers that I want?
No, for most people, the Rescue Remedy is perfect. So if you're green and you don't really know much, then you just want to get the Rescue Remedy, because it's a blend of 9 different flowers. Now there's
Oh,
30
okay.
flowers in general. You can go to a Rescue Remedy therapist and they can formulate you your own one. Like if you have hysteria, or like, you know, like it's a big spectrum of what it can do. But the Rescue Remedy is one single like blend that kind of all encompassing for most stressful situations.
Okay, very neat. Very neat. Yeah, I've never heard of that before. Like obviously we have, we've talked about like essential oils and aromatherapy and things like that, but yeah, that's not something that I've ever heard of. So I'm really excited to add that into my toolbox for sure. It's really neat.
Good one. And it's like affordable. It's probably like $12-14 maybe for a little bottle. So, and it can fit in your purse, and it is a good one for emotional, mental well-being.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. I love that it's one of those things that you can kind of, add to somebody else's day without them even noticing, without it being like aggressive or offensive or maybe even abusive, right? Because sometimes when we're like trying to show somebody that things can happen, it can be a bit overwhelming, or we need to find like the right way to integrate them. Hertz therapy is another one that I've slowly been introducing to my household lately. Like at nighttime, I'll like play certain frequencies, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to be invasive to anybody, but I love when everyone wakes up and they're like, oh, I feel so well rested. I'm like, oh, interesting. Oh, really? You don't say. So yeah, I'm excited to add that one. That's really neat. Thank you for sharing. Wonderful. Yeah. Well, and for it to work on animals, I mean, there really isn't any other test better than that, especially when you look at the size of horses. And I mean, they don't need to be big to be affected. And horses are one of the things, I mean, a fly. And I always think of that when like people are kind of pulling on their horses, but that's another topic. They are really sensitive. But when you're talking about like, some like a smell having that sort of effect, clearly the science is there, or doesn't even need to be there, because the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of those topics. Those are all really wonderful. I do appreciate it. Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm excited to maybe start a little bit of a garden of my own. I think I live in a small town, and there isn't a community garden yet. And so I'm really excited to maybe go and find somebody with a couple of pallets, or I don't know if I can wrangle a logger out in Alberta, but I'll definitely try and bat my eyelashes and see what I can pull off and see if we
Just
can't maybe.
like raised mounds. You don't even need to have a raised bed. You can just like mound some rows in the backyard or whatever. And if you have
Yeah.
access to some cow manure that's been well aged, that would be good.
Yeah, that's a dime a dozen around me. That's no big deal.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Christy, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. I know you're an absolutely busy lady, but I actually have seen some of the comments already, and it does make a difference to people to having coming in a little bit out of my comfort zone today, even though, Pinecase is mine, but I'm in a different atmosphere and all these things, to be able to walk through some of the solutions and then to see people out there being like, thank you for giving us some information that's accessible for us, whether it's on the go or whatever, it does make a difference. I mean, I'm sure you see that every single day. There's no surprise there that you're not making a massive impact on the community around you, but thank you for sharing some of that love with us over here. We do appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah. For everybody that's out there tonight, thank you so much for tuning in. I do want to say that we'll have all the links in the description everywhere that you can find Christy Walker. You could get lost in all the beautiful things she's doing, but please go out there and support, like, share, subscribe, go pop in, book an appointment, whatever you need to do. There's certain people that that you don't necessarily need to keep, but definitely are keepers of the community, and she is one of them. So yeah, don't be shy. And you guys, please stay safe. I don't want to turn this into a negative thing, but just for everybody else out there, we have had the hotline has been bumping lately. So just a little bit of a quick take care of each other and check in on your neighbors. It's super important. Stay safe. I feel like I'm rambling, but there was just so much happening this week in our little community. And I think that's all. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that's all. Everything will be in the description. Thank you for tuning in. Christy, you take care. We'll talk to you soon, darling.
Hey.
Bye.